for anybody that's looking to still get a pour of Kentucky Owl, and of course you're not going to be able to find it in the shelves when you come from Kentucky because that stuff was long gone within the week that it came out. So do you have the Kentucky Owl bourbon at your tavern that if somebody does come and stay with you, they can say, I've had it?
We've got plenty of it.
Always find what you love at Total Wine & More. With so many great bottles to choose from at the lowest price, it's easy to find your favorite Cabernet or a new single-barrel bourbon to try with some help from one of their friendly guides. And with every bottle comes the confidence of knowing you just found something amazing. With the lowest prices for over 30 years, find what you love and love what you find only at Total Wine & More. Curbside pickup and delivery available in most areas. Visit TotalWine.com to learn more. Spirits not sold in Virginia and North Carolina. Drink responsibly and be 21.
Play Whiskey Wednesday, Round 11, the memory game. Until June 26, each week you could win one of our 12 incredible grand prizes. Select 2 doors at checkout. And if they match on drawing night, you'll win that bottle. Not a match? No worries. You still score a Weller 12-year. Every $5 ticket gives you 5 chances to win, including 4 weekly bonus prizes. Get your tickets now at give270.org. Charitable Gaming License ORG 0002703.
Ed Bly and Rising Tide Spirits are back again with a new release of Old Stubborn Bourbon. And this release of Old Stubborn is a premium hand marriage of 10, 11, and 12-year cask strength, barely filtered pot still bourbon. It comes in at a staggering 123.8 proof. And the flavoring grain for this one, which the last one was wheated, but this time it's now rye. Rich, sweet, and bold with a long finish that's sure to be another eye-opener. You can order online at Sealbox or thebourbonconcierge.com. And you can even purchase in person at Revival Vintage Spirits, and even now with very few select stores in Kentucky. You can get it now while you can, but be sure to do it because it's not going to last long. Do you ever pour yourself a bourbon, swirl it around, and then start struggling to come up with tasting notes? And perhaps you're also looking for a good Father's Day gift idea. Well, you can now solve both with a kit from Knows Your Bourbon. And unlike other nosing kits on the market, Knows Your Bourbon kits feature real ingredients for the most authentic aromas. You can smell real Tahitian vanilla bean instead of some synthetic aroma that's just made from chemicals. So head on over to knowsyourbourbon.com and enter code BP10 for 10% off your order. From their bar to yours, Chad and Sarah of the popular YouTube channel It's Bourbon Night bring you their favorite at-home old-fashioned mix with the new Elemental Elixir's Golden Hour Syrup. It's a custom-made syrup with notes of bold black tea, warm spices, and orange zest. All you need is your favorite whiskey and ice. No bitters needed. One bottle makes 16 drinks, so that's only $1 a cocktail before you add your own whiskey. They can also be enjoyed in other cocktails or spirits, mocktails, coffee, tea, and anything you can think of. It's crafted locally in Lexington, Kentucky, and you can get your bottle now at whiskeyambitions.com.
And we're back with another episode of the Bourbon Pursuit Podcast. My name is Kenny. We also have Ryan here, but I want to go ahead and just tell you we have Dixon Dedman on the show today. And Dixon is the owner-operator of the Beaumont Inn, and he's also a partner in Kentucky Owl, the latest bourbon craze that just hit. But before we go ahead and move that way, we'll say welcome back to the show, Ryan. How you been?
I'm good, man. It's fall here in Kentucky, my favorite time of the year. A lot of bourbons coming out, football. Kentucky's Wildcats are winning. It's rare. Life is good, and my fantasy football team is kicking ass. So
yeah, I was about to say,
I'm pumped.
Rare bourbon and rare football wins are happening right now in Kentucky. That's the crazy thing too. But you talked about fantasy football. I think that's one thing that I've always noticed when I get on these forums and look at it is the way things have changed in this new way that we're moving towards better bourbon and all these other things. And people are loving the gambling aspect of it. And so now I see a lot of people, at least a few months ago when they were getting their fantasy teams together, that instead of an entrance fee of $50 or $100, it's now basically like, let's find a bourbon that's a 30 or 40 or maybe even $100 bourbon, and that's your entrance fee into the group.
The bourbon league that I'm in is really cool. It's really kind of more laid back. We wagered about a $50 to $60 bottle of bourbon, and it's kind of be approved by the group as, a good bottle, like, a Weller 12 or a Four Roses barrel pick or something like that. So it's pretty cool. And
get your bird dog out of here.
Exactly. Yeah. and so I think the winner there's 10 people in the league. The winner gets 6 bottles. I think second gets 3, and then third gets 1 or whatever. So that'd be a pretty cool win to get 6 pretty awesome bottles of bourbon, at the end of the year.
Now, the other thing is, so you put up this bottle of bourbon. Now, who's stopping you from cracking that open during the season, or like your team loses and you just know you're not going to win the fantasy league and you just say, screw it, and you go ahead and open it up. So are they all sitting at somebody's house? Like they're like the commissioner for the league gets to hold all the bottles till then?
We made a mistake. We did not appoint a treasurer to hold these bottles safely until the end of the season. So I'm hoping that I can trust these guys that, at the end of the year, they'll be ready to pony up their losses, because I'm definitely going to win. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, man.
I'm excited about our guests. We did a review for Kentucky Owl. I wish we'd saved it for before this. It was we got the batch 2 and we really enjoyed it, and I'm excited to talk to Dixon. Because this bourbon is my kind of bourbon, because it's the wise man's bourbon.
Yeah.
So it makes me feel wise that I drink it. But yeah, excited to have Dixon on.
Yeah, definitely. So let's go ahead and we'll open this up. So Dixon, Dedman, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be somebody is worthy to interview.
What we try to do is we try to round out everything about Kentucky, with bourbon, and then you have a good mesh into there as well as you have a lot of things that go into the tourism industry as well. So I totally want to start talking about first. Let's talk about you, right? Give everybody kind of a level set of who you are and what you've been doing and kind of what's led you up to this point.
Well, sure. I'm the 5th generation of my family to operate the Bourbon Inn here in Harrodsburg. 1919 is about the year that my great grandmother was fully operational. With a restaurant and the guest rooms. She bought the building in 1916. It was a college that she had graduated from, a women's college. And not knowing what she was going to do with it, she kind of turned it into an inn. And kind of here we are. It's been handed down. My father and mother are still involved when they want to be, and then we'll go weeks without seeing them. And it's kind of in my hands and in my lap right now. I've lived here or within a mile from here my whole life, aside from the 4 years I spent in South Carolina in college. For the most part, because I needed to get far enough away that if somebody didn't show up for work on a Friday night, my dad couldn't call me and say, hey, get in here, you're frying chicken tonight or whatever. So I spent 4 years at Wofford College in Spartanburg, South Carolina, and graduated on Sunday and was back to work on Thursday and have been here since. And it's very traditional Kentucky 1845 property that we're in. And we now have 3 restaurants, but, our main dining room was just awarded a James Beard Award as an America's Classic for kind of our longevity there. And so that's kind of my day-to-day. That's what I do is kind of just try to keep this thing going.
So let's talk about your bourbon. What kind of got you into dealing with the Kentucky Owl brand? Like, I guess, where did that stem from?
Are you talking about the brand itself?
Yeah. Well, I mean, is family history, and then what led you to even, reinvigorating it?
It's one of those things that's just, it almost, for me personally, feels like, something magical that happened, something that is like stars aligned. Kentucky Owl was a brand that was produced from about 1879 to about 1917 by my great grandfather, C.M. Dedman. He had a distillery in what's called Oregon, Kentucky, which is just north of Mercer County. That distillery was obviously closed with Prohibition, and there's some other stories about all of that. But the long and short of it is that, the federal government came, they took all his whiskey, put it on barges, put it in warehouses, and essentially would not allow him to insure it at that point. They said, not to worry, Mr. Dedman, your bourbon is in government hands and it's as good as insured. And he passed away in about 1918, and his son received word shortly thereafter that unfortunately those warehouses had mysteriously burned, and that there was no I don't know if retribution is the right, but there was no payment coming back for those lost barrels. My grandfather's number was always somewhere around 250,000 gallons was the amount that was kind of tossed around there. But at any rate, my great grandfather sued the federal government a number of times for up to 15 years trying to get any amount of money back for that. And they never received the first dime. It was always one of those things that everybody talked about. He always talked about bringing it back. My grandfather's great line was always when he won the lottery. It wasn't if he won the lottery, but when he won the lottery, he was going to first buy a limousine and second start up the family bourbon again. And he passed away in 2003 without that happening. It's always been a dream of my dad's, and my family still owns the property where the distillery was. And we grew up camping out down there. We built a little cabin down there. We played down there as kids, running around on the foundation of the old warehouses and stuff. And so, it's always been kind of a part of family history, always something that we've wanted to do, but it was just always kind of out there and unattainable. It's really, part of that is because it takes a pretty substantial investment. And part of that's because it's a really hard thing to do. I tell people all the time, if I had to do it myself, I got a better shot at getting to the moon with the stuff that's in my garage than I do getting through all the legal paperwork and red tape and all the nonsense that you have to file and everything. It's just, it's unbelievable. There's a friend of my contemporary of my father's in the innkeeping business. They've been serving on boards together since the early 80s. And he's got an inn in Northern California, in Eureka. And he got into the wine business and has a winery in Calistoga in Napa Valley out there. And not only does he make some phenomenal wines, he's got 300-point scores from Robert Parker for his Cabernets, but he also makes wine for a lot of other people. And so he has the staff and the knowledge of what it takes to get through the permitting process and the licensing process and all that stuff. So the long and short of it is that Mark and I were discussing him creating a proprietary wine label for the inn. And he said, look, you keep talking about wine, but all you're drinking is bourbon. All you can talk about is bourbon. All you think about is bourbon.
And you're from Kentucky.
Yeah.
And he's like, and you got bourbon in your blood. I mean, it's in your family history. He was like, you ever thought about, doing the bourbon thing? And I was like, Mark, that's my dream. That's what I would love it. And he said, let's do it. After I kind of picked my jaw up and stuff, he kind of said, look, I can take care of this part of it. You find it, you make it, you get it done. We'll come out and get this thing going. And so we literally beat the bushes for, 18 months or so. And that's how, kind of we got the ball rolling. It's just been an absolutely unbelievable project. It's so much fun. And it's also one of those things that, if it goes away tomorrow, if nothing ever happens with it, if another bottle never sells, I can always say I did it. I've always got a bottle, that I can give to my kids and say, one time we did this, and this was your great, great, great grandfather's label, 100-something years ago. It's a personal point of pride for me. I have no interest in being some bourbon don. I don't, consider myself even in the same realm as some of the accomplished and the people in the bourbon world that I don't want anybody to ever think that I have some opinion of myself as I'm just basically I fry chicken, I wash dishes, I had this opportunity. We think we make a pretty good bourbon. I'm really proud of it, and for me, it's a really cool experience and something that I'm really proud to have been able to do.
That's really great to hear that you're very humble about it, that you don't sit there and say, like, I've just became a master distiller because of my own right. And
I'm a rock star.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean,
let me tell you something. The weirdest thing in the world for me has been, people will show up and ask me to sign their bottle. And I'm used to signing checks or yes, I agree to pay you for this service or whatever. I mean, it floors me. It floors me. I just, it's so unbelievable to me.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. So, I mean, talk about the brand just a little bit more, right? So, I guess why the tag name, The Wise Man's Bourbon? Is it just because it's an owl on there, or is there more to it?
No, I mean, my two partners in this, Mark Carter and his wife Sherry. Sherry is a graphic designer, and she does websites and things like that. But what we did was we took the original Kentucky Owl label and updated it slightly. For one, the original owl on the Kentucky Owl bottle looked as much like a field mouse as it does an owl. So we got to do something about this owl. And she redesigned the lettering, the script. But if you look, the original said Kentucky Owl, Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, the Wise Man's Whiskey. So that's an original slogan that we just chose to call it the Wise Man's Bourbon instead of the Wise Man's Whiskey. But we, from the label on, they are very similar.
Mm-hmm.
So getting to the bourbon, what made you guys decide to go with the barrel proof offering instead of, like a 90 proof or 100 proof that's more palatable, but to some people, to the common folk, but to bourbon connoisseurs, we really appreciate the barrel proofs.
I'm a barrel proof guy myself. And I think with where we wanted to be with this brand and what we wanted to do, barrel proof was the only way to go. One of the things that we're doing with everything is we're double barreling, but we're double barreling much earlier. We're not finishing in a new barrel for, 18 months, 2 years. The first two batches that have been out at 4 years old, they were dumped. And then they were then we had new charred white oak barrels refilled with that 4-year-old product. And we did it, barrels of differing char levels. And so part of what's been really fun about this is kind of, it's starting with 14, and then for batch 2, I was working with 9, but we're working with 9 barrels of differing char levels. And you can't imagine, when we're working on such a small scale, you can't imagine how different, you can't believe, I should say, how different 2 barrels of identical distillate will taste after 4 to 5 years in barrels of different char levels. And they just, and so part of what we were doing, part of what we're trying to create, these very, these unique batches of different blends of barrels from different char levels and things like that. Number one, that a lot of that's kind of lost if you take it from 117 and knock it down to 90. Then how much of that uniqueness is there? But number two, with where we wanted to be, the last thing I wanted anybody saying was, here are these guys coming out with this new brand, charging this ridiculous amount of money, and they're watering it down to 86 proof so that they can sell X number of cases so they can put X number of bucks in their pocket. And the reality is, I felt like to get and do what we wanted to do, that the only way to do it was to do a barrel proof expression. And I have nothing against any other brands, but for us, I didn't want anybody to think we were trying to hide something. We were trying to water something down. We were trying to stretch it. We wanted it to be the real deal. And you let the consumer decide if they want to add a little water.
Shopify's already taken the cash register online, helping millions sell billions around the world. But did you know that Shopify can do the same thing at your retail store? Give your point-of-sale system a serious upgrade with Shopify. Shopify's point of sale is your command center for your retail store. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify has everything you need to sell in person. And with Shopify, you get a powerhouse selling partner that effortlessly unites your in-person and online sales into one source of truth. Track every sale across your business in one place and know exactly what's in stock. Connect with customers in-line and online. Shopify helps you drive store traffic with plug-and-play tools built for marketing campaigns, from TikTok to Instagram and beyond. And get hardware that fits your business. Take payments by smartphone, transform your tablet into a point-of-sale system, or use Shopify's point-of-sale Go mobile device for a battle-tested solution. Plus, Shopify's award-winning 24/7 help is there to support your success every step of the way. Do retail right with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/bourbon, all lowercase, and go to shopify.com/bourbon to take your retail business to the next level today. Shopify.com/bourbon. If you're anything like me, then you can't get enough about bourbon. And that's why I'm a subscriber to Bourbon Plus magazine. Bourbon Plus is a quarterly publication that tells the stories from the heart of bourbon, the farmers who grow the grain, the distillers who labor over the process, and the people like you and me who raise their glasses to celebrate it all. Subscribe to Bourbon Plus magazine today at bourbonplus.com, that's PLUS.com, and use code PURSUIT at checkout for $5 off your subscription.
So the other thing about, I guess, can you talk, because you talked that you had 9 barrels. So, this is like a real small batch blend then, right?
We probably have 100 to 120 maybe barrels from 9+ years old all the way down to 6 months old. But for batch 2, I was working from 9 particular barrels. And so, I started with a blend of all 9. A blend of, and I started really with about 24 different blends of different, barrel combinations. And, worked it down to about 5, took those 5 to a lot of people whose opinion I value, people in the industry, people who ask me not to mention their names, but people who, it's not like we just kind of willy-nilly did this on our own. We took it to some pretty high profile people and had them take a look at a lot of this stuff. And the one that we kept settling on was this batch 2, or the blend that became batch 2. And that was a 6-barrel blend. So we didn't use all 9. We just selected 6 of them. There are 3 of them from the Char 4 and 3 of them from the Char 5. And it was that blend for me again and again and again and again. And I would do it blind. And it was that particular one that really stood out to me and to most people, to be honest with you.
And so reiterate what you did, right? Because I want to make sure that I understood that correctly, is that you took these barrels and then you dumped them and then you put them back into new charred barrels. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it was about 19 barrels or so we dumped at 4 years old. So this is about 5.5 years ago. So we dumped them and that filled 14 new barrels, and they were all different char levels. We kind of experimented with a few of them, some pretty low. We had a few 2s, a few 3s, a lot of 4, a lot of 5, and a handful of 6. Those 14 barrels were what we've been using, what we used for batch 1 and batch 2. That we had the combination for batch 1 was a blend of 5 barrels, 1 from each char level, so a 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then, you take those 5 out, we had 9 left. And so a year later, working from those 9, the blend that we chose was 6 of those 9.
So I guess the one thing that you'd always think of when you think of any brand, there's usually some sort of like consistency when you go and you pick up a bottle. Now, are you trying to figure out, I haven't opened up my batch 1. I have a bottle of batch 1. I was actually able to get my hands on, but I haven't cracked it open. So, is there a big difference between batch 1 and batch 2? And then when you think of batch 3, are you
batch 1 and batch 2 have similarities. The way it's looking right now, batch 3, and we have a lot of different distillate. I don't mind telling you, I've got some wheated product that's been double barreled that is absolutely out of this world. It is phenomenal. And so, each batch, batch 1 and batch 2 are similar. Batch 3 could potentially be a completely different animal altogether. And that's what we're trying to do. Each batch, we're not looking for specifically trying to recreate each batch. Each time we do it, it'll be a different expression and could be a different expression altogether.
So I guess for anybody out there who's listening to this and is thinking to themselves, like, what the hell are they talking about? I've never seen this stuff on the shelves before. This is a Kentucky-only release, and the only way you can get it outside of Kentucky is, of course, through a secondary market or through your best friend that lives here that was nice enough to go and wait in a line and get you a bottle. I guess the first question is like, why the only Kentucky, release? Like, what was the thought just behind having a one-state release?
Well, part of that is because, the first batch, we actually only put out about 1,100 bottles to the market. The second batch, we put out, about 1,400. And to spread that over different markets just means, that it kind of felt like for a lot of people a needle in a haystack anyway. But, if we took it further outside Kentucky, we felt like it spread us too thin. And
there might be like 30 bottles you've had in the whole entire state or something like that.
Right. And I think Kentucky is bourbon. I mean, we wanted to start this in Kentucky. We'll go outside Kentucky as we get some more barrels that come of age. It was important to us to almost be exclusive to Kentucky to get this thing started. And I know there are some others, but that don't. But there are other products I'm sure that are now exclusively just released in Kentucky. That's just kind of and when you look at some of those boards and stuff, I mean, there was a store in Lexington. This guy said that he had 4 college kids from New York that were paid to drive down here, wait in line, and get 4 Kentucky Owls and take it back to a guy. So, I mean, I guess the people out of state, if they have the means, are figuring out a way to get it if they want.
That's true. That's true. So, I mean, I guess how does that make you feel, right? To kind of know that your brand is, exploding to the point where people are in high demand for it. This is all we kind of look at. This is probably a bubble that's going to burst at some point, but right now it's hot, right? And so, I mean, how does that make you feel?
It's almost a surreal feeling, because for us, it's very much a hands-on thing. I mean, I pull samples from barrels at least once every couple months, and we go through, we design the label, we do, we're there for all the bottling, we see it going, and all that stuff. And that's it's so much fun. And then you see it come out, you look at it and the way people talk about it, the way people chase it, and the way it goes, and you're sitting there thinking, my gosh, it's surreal. It really is,
Mm-hmm. Tell us about the Old Owl Tavern, because, it kind of has that same name, and I think it's on your property too, right?
Well, sure. One of the things that's kind of interesting about, and, I mean, most people in Kentucky know that there's few places in the world with more archaic liquor and alcohol histories than Kentucky. But I graduated from college in May of 2003. In November of 2003, the 4th election over a 10-year period passed in Harrodsburg to allow sale of alcohol by the drink. And so, from Prohibition until November of 2003, Harrodsburg, where we are, was a dry county. November that passed. In March of 2004, we immediately started construction on one part of the building to put in the Old Owl Tavern. And, the owl, the owl is taken, the name is taken from that same distillery. That was, we opened in November, the night before Thanksgiving, November of 2004. And it provided us a completely new, I guess, amenity to offer to our guests. It's a very casual dining restaurant, very, it's not near as formal as our white tablecloth dining room, but we've also built it into what I think is a pretty damn cool bourbon bar. The Bourbon Review guys named us one of America's 75 best bourbon bars, and I've got anywhere from 110 to 120, 130, depending on what time of year it is, brands on the shelves. And it's really taken on a life of its own. I mean, I can't believe it's been 11 years since we did that. But the tavern has made a big impact in what we're doing here at the inn.
Yeah, I mean, that seems like a lot. Yeah, so you got a lot of bourbons on the shelf there, over 120, huh? I think you could probably make yourself a stop on that Urban Bourbon Trail.
We've partnered up big time with the Kentucky Bourbon Trail. We're a sponsor. We're one of the handful of properties that they recommend for as an overnight accommodation, because for the trail itself, we sit right in the middle. Each of the distilleries are really within less than an hour from us. And so, we're really centrally located, and that's been a huge part of our business here lately is partnering up with and all that's going on with the Bourbon Trail.
Well, that's fantastic to know, because we've gotten a multitude of messages of people that send us emails, and they say, we're actually going to go and check out the Kentucky Bourbon Trail after listening to this podcast. And for the longest time, we've always kind of said, well, the best place to probably go is Louisville, because you're kind of in the middle between Lexington. You can either go east or west, depending on which way you want to go, and go to all these different distilleries, because you can only choose really one. But now I'm glad to hear that there's another good location that, of course, is you have your kind of like your bed and breakfast kind of scenario, where it's you have your restaurants, you have everything that you would need there, all your amenities at home. And then, of course, you're only, an hour and 15 minutes away from downtown Louisville, something like that.
Yeah,
So.
I mean, we last year we had guests stay with us from all 50 states and 16 foreign countries, and the majority of all of those places represented at least visited one or two distilleries, and so we do a lot of it. And the great part about where we are is you can go, as you say, west and knock out all of the ones in the Bardstown area in a day, and then go east or northeast from us and hit the others, and you're still only traveling about less than an hour. So.
Mm-hmm. So I guess for anybody that's looking to still get a pour of Kentucky Owl, and of course you're not going to be able to find it on the shelves when you come from Kentucky, because that stuff was long gone within the week that it came out. So do you have the Kentucky Owl bourbon at your tavern that if somebody does come and stay with you, they can at least say, I've had it?
Sure. We've got it. We've got plenty of it. The other thing I'll kind of plug there is I do a lot of tastings here at the inn as well, private tastings. I do 4 or 5 a week. If you go to the tavern's Facebook page, you can see the pictures of the different tastings. But we've always got Kentucky Owl on the shelf. I want it. The thing that's so important to me about Kentucky Owl is that people drink it. We don't make it. I mean, I love it's a great feeling to know that people have placed such a value on it, that people do so much to get it, that people want it. And we want them to drink it. We want them to crack it open, on a special occasion and drink this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I've had it. I said it was fantastic. If you can find it and you got some spare change, add it to the shelf. But it's definitely something that I think it's grown in this very, very recent history. It is one of those brands that people love to be able to say, I have it on the shelf, right? It's next up to there to my B-Tax and my Pappies. And, I'm only going to pour it for the esteemed guests that actually visit my basement bar.
Well, man, I'll tell you again, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart. I never dreamed that we would be there. It is such a cool feeling. It is, I am humbled beyond belief to even hear somebody say something along those lines. We're just it's just it's a point. It's a thing of pride for me. My dad and I have a pour of it every once in a while. And, it's just kind of one of those things. It's like, man, there's a long line of our family who looking over us thinking this is pretty daggone cool.
Yeah. I could totally see that. It's especially, carrying on a family lineage and something like that is definitely nice. So last question, because we're kind of reaching our 30-minute mark. This was a question that came from Adam Johnson, who is a former former guest of the show. He's the director of the Kentucky Bourbon Trail. And he says, I need to know the secret to the General Lee cake.
Let me tell you about Adam Johnson. Adam Johnson's a good friend of mine. Adam Johnson also was he tried to bartend for me for a little bit. And I kept catching him over there sampling different things. And next thing you know, he just wanted to be paid in this Robert E. Lee cake, so he snuck that in there, and he'll say I owe him something for that question or whatever. But that's one of our traditional desserts. It's a layered citrus sponge cake with citrus icing. We've been serving. It's been on the menu since they started welcoming guests to the inn in 1919. It's just one of our real traditional classic desserts.
Oh, that's fantastic. So if anybody does need to get a hold of you, or if they want to make a reservation at the inn, how do they do that?
Well, our website is probably the easiest, beaumontinn.com. I keep being given more email accounts. I think I've got Dixon at KentuckyOwlBourbon.com. I've got Dixon at BeaumontInn.com. Any of those ways, I'd be happy to answer any questions or have anybody come stay with us and drink a little Kentucky Owl and tell some stories.
Well, that's awesome. I want to say thank you again for being on the show, Dixon. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
It's very much my pleasure. I certainly do appreciate the opportunity and certainly do. I'm honored that y'all would think that I was worthy of having an interview with.
Hey, we'll see when Batch 3 comes out. We might have you on again.
Sounds like a plan.
All right. So if you like what you hear, make sure you subscribe to us on iTunes. You can also like us on Facebook and Instagram at Bourbon Pursuit. You can also follow us on Twitter. We're on there pretty much every single day, tweeting out pictures of what we're doing, what our bunkers look like, any kind of cool industry news and retweets. We love interacting with some of our not only our guests, but also our fans of the show. So please get us there. If you have any comments, suggestions, people you want to see on the show, we just got a new suggestion last week. We need to interview the people at Old Pogue. We're gonna go ahead and reach out to a lot of those people, and we're gonna try to get them on because we love to again capture those stories in the history of the industry before they're all gone. So again, Dixon, thank you again for being on the show, and we'll see you all next time.